So do you think people today are more aware?
47% of adults are not paying attention.
One moment when you felt like you suddenly realized you were not in the present at all.
We are all very much addicted to this constant cycle of information and media that's coming to us from various sources.
It's an ecosystem of screens. It's
Exactly.
like, hi, I'm Divya.
I'm Alekhya.
And we're here to talk about mindfulness. So everyone's talking about mindfulness today. But what is it that they're actually chasing?
I think a lot of us have forgotten what experiencing means. Being yourself and being in the moment. A lot of us, we're operating on autopilot almost, right? During every action we're doing, our mind is wandering. We're not able to stay in the present with the action, whether it's something we enjoy or don't enjoy. We're always thinking about what's next or what happened before. That snapping back to the present, that is mindfulness.
So do you think people today are more aware or overwhelmed?
I think we're all very overwhelmed by a lot of external factors around us, right? Just social media, everything that's happening around us, our own lives, because it's changing so rapidly.
It's almost like saying that if I am just trying to enjoy my morning tea and not thinking about 30 other things, it means that I am not productive enough, and that's like tying to your self-worth.
Exactly.
So I guess the whole concept of mindfulness is almost lost. Can you point out maybe like one moment when you felt like you suddenly realized you were not in the present at all?
Funnily enough, this morning when I was prepping for this podcast shoot, I was brushing and reading articles on like what mindfulness stuff, and one of the points said brush mindfully, and I was just like, oh my god, this is a slap in the face to me. So yeah, I think
Fair
it
enough.
happens quite often.
I think it happens every now and then actually. Like, you know, sometimes when I'm reading a book, like your attention span is already becoming like a lot lesser. So when I'm reading, I tend to like deviate into a different like parallel thought process sometimes, and then when I come back, I'm suddenly wondering, I'm like, why did that happen? Like I was reading a really interesting story, but why is it that I started thinking about like something on my to-do list, right? So that's something that I have seen noticeably happening for me. We'll just dive right into the conversation now, and let's discuss the first topic: what mindfulness actually means, where it comes from, what it was actually meant to be, and what it has become in the modern day. My first question to you is, if you had to define mindfulness without sounding like a meditation app, how would you define it?
Historically speaking, mindfulness first started, the earliest mention was in a Buddhist teaching in, I think the Theravada teachings, where they talked about it as a way of paying attention to the body, the mind, the way you think, and your feelings. And then maybe centuries later and continents away, in Greek philosophy, it came up in, I think, Stoic philosophy, where they were talking about it in a slightly different manner, which was focusing similarly on what's happening within you and also focusing on what's in your control, which I think is a really big aspect of mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
So there's a Harvard study which talks about how 47% of adults are not paying attention to like their daily life, and a significant part of them showed that they were unhappy when they were so distracted all the time. So I think mindfulness as a definition can be pinpointed to various things that we've just talked about. It's about paying attention to what's happening within your mind and your body, being in the present and realizing what each experience is doing to you mentally, physically, emotionally, and then focusing on what you can and cannot control in that moment, and letting go of what you can't, right? Because it's beyond your control. And then also just understanding that it has scientific backing, what is happening within me and what I can do to change it.
Do you think that modern culture, like especially like after everything that you've explained of what the modern interpretation of mindfulness is, do you think that the modern culture has diluted or democratized this concept?
I think definitely, we see it on social media now, right? It's become a trend, and it's been diluted quite a bit to specific moments that you can take out of your day and do something. Oh, I'm getting a matcha, or I'm going for a walk in the evening. Sure, those might be mindful moments, but it's not just limited to that. And by making it a trend, it's become sort of limiting in its in the way it can be done and to the people it can go to. Because for a lot of people that might not mean mindfulness. It might not be accessible to them economically, physically, whatever. Right?
It's almost unachievable in certain ways, just because it's like a pretty picture that was painted.
Exactly.
And I mean, for a lot of people, it's out of reach, is what my understanding is.
I think it has been democratized, but within a very certain section of society. But actually, it should be available and understood. I mean, people across the world should be made aware of it, because it's something that is so imperative to the human experience and to just making yourself feel better on a day-to-day basis, right? And a second way also, I think it's become a trend, is it's now becoming a productivity tool. Every way you can become better at work is talked about through mindfulness, but actually it's way beyond just work. It's about every moment of your life, as we've reiterated. So it's
It's like a lifelong habit that you need to foster almost. It's not something that you turn on the switch and you turn it off, which I think is the misconception for a lot of people.
Yeah, like mindfulness journal, why should it just be limited to that moment, right? It can be a starting point, but that shouldn't only be for work that I'm going to do this mindfully.
Right.
And I think we've spoken about it, that mindfulness is a lifestyle. It's not just a habit or a hobby or a work.
I think we started Purple Forest with that objective, that mindfulness is not limited to a ritual or it's not limited to one activity that you do in a day. The idea is that you foster like this lifelong habit that persists and it shows up in everything you do. Why do we struggle with mindfulness so much today?
I think there's two things that are really stopping us from being able to experience mindfulness, right? One is we are all very much addicted to this constant cycle of information and media that's coming to us from various sources. Sometimes you shut your phone and you're like, okay, now laptop, now TV.
It's an ecosystem of screens.
Exactly.
It's like, where does it stop?
It doesn't. And the second reason, which is when the screens come off, and it's time to sort of get into the practice, I think we're all facing a fear of the silence that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
We are scared almost to turn off the screens because then you're missing out on something, or what are you doing with your time? You're not being productive, you're not engaging with the world, you're not engaging with the content or the meme.
Another aspect of this is also like where you don't learn how to process your emotions because you're constantly distracted. So the moment you're putting that screen away, suddenly you need to face all your emotions, or like, suddenly you need to face all the problems that you have, which you have not thought about and they've been marinating around you, which I think like a lot of people have shared experiences of. I
For sure, yeah.
think, yeah. So if this segment got you feeling like, oh my god, that's really me, then please stay.
Do you think overthinking is the opposite of mindfulness, or what's the relationship between them?
I think it absolutely is, because technically when you're in a state of overthinking, you are not living mindfully. And it comes down to like a very simple example of the article you talked about earlier, which we will link below so you can read it, and we recommend highly that you all read that article because it's so beautifully written. But it basically talks about how even the smaller experiences, right, like missing someone or simply having a hit of inspiration all of a sudden doesn't call for a need to action upon it always. So if you're feeling inspired, that doesn't mean that the end goal has to be something you have to monetize. Like you don't have to create a masterpiece that has to like gain views. It could simply be just scribbling in your notebook, and that satisfaction of like, okay, I was feeling inspired and I did something with it. And just enjoying the joy of that experience is something that's lacking in people. So yeah, I think that is pretty much what I feel in terms of, is mindfulness the opposite of overthinking? It absolutely is. And if you're here and you're thinking, oh my god, that sounds like me, don't worry, you're not alone. And also, please do stay till the end of the episode, because in the next segment, we will discuss how do you practice mindfulness in your everyday. So coming to the part where we talk about how you can implement mindfulness, I am going to ask you questions based on 3 different scenarios, because I think different types of people have different questions on like how they want to start this journey, etc. So the first one being entry level, like beginners who don't fully understand mindfulness, or they're not even aware of it as a concept, right? So how would you suggest like they start meditating, because meditating is a huge part of being a mindful person? Or what are the things that they can do in their day-to-day life that would help them start to be more mindful?
Meditation sounds like a big word, but actually it can just be broken down into 3 separate parts if you could practice it that way. I think number 1 is just take 30 seconds every hour to reset.
Right.
Stop whatever you're doing. Set an alarm on your phone if you need to remember. Stop whatever you're doing and just close your eyes and be in that moment for 30 seconds. Recalibrate the way you're approaching the next 1 hour, because every day is changing so quickly for us, right? And you're always reacting and responding. Second, mindful breathing. You don't have to make it ritualistic in any way. Just you and your body, you and your breath. Just close your eyes again, and you can do it in the same 30-second reset, right? Breathe mindfully and just observe the inhale and the exhale. That's it. You don't have to make it meditative or chanting or anything of that sort. The third thing, if you can, consciously observe your thoughts. Whenever you realize or think about this, come back and try to become an observer to your own thoughts.
Right.
Instead of getting drawn in by it and following the loop it's going to take you, just take a step back and see where it's coming from and where it's trying to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really great concept that I think a lot of people don't know about either. But your thought is not you. Your thought and your consciousness are two separate entities that a lot of people don't even know about. So when you actually start separating the two, you realize how differently you show up in situations, or the way that you react in certain situations, which is really interesting. And to cue to your first point, which is great, like I just want to say that people microdose on so many things. Why not microdose on your breathing? Just observe the breathing. I think that's one of the things that has helped me a lot through my life in the last couple of years. So yeah, amazing.
Microdosing on mindfulness.
Yeah, microdosing on mindfulness. That is key. Okay, so now coming to a very popular question that we are asked a lot. How do you integrate mindfulness into your everyday?
It is to be put in every day of every part of your life. Every activity, every moment is mindfulness, is meant to be mindful, right? But we do have certain experiences that are common to all of us. Time we take out to eat, the time we spend in the bathroom grooming ourselves, things like that.
It's the routine activities.
The routine ones, yeah. So I think starting there, just eating without scrolling. Yeah. Which is the tough one, but
it's the toughest one. I think everyone would agree.
Yeah. Or go for a walk without earphones, without music, without talking to anybody, no phone calls. You have to be fully aware of the moment so that you don't mess up something, right? So I think that's a great way to start practicing mindfulness. And I think something that's often forgotten is listening to other people while conversations are happening, being mindful of other people's reactions. Leave their words. Reactions also tells you so much more about a situation, about them. And I think it's a very lost art.
Very interesting, because I think the audience at this point is probably feeling like, oh my God, you're taking away my basic rights. And believe us, because we're a part of that rat race. But that being said, you can start really small. So coming to the third part, which is where we focus on people who intentionally want to set aside time to be more mindful during their days. Are there any tools that they can use in order to practice this and make it a habit? There is a lot of buzz around topics like journaling or affirmations and things like that. Are these tools that actually work when it comes to real life applications? And secondly, what is the role of writing when it comes to being more mindful? It's known to be a sought out way of really, becoming more mindful of the way you go about your day. So what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, definitely I think these tools that you mentioned, journaling and affirmations and things like that, are a great starting point. In fact, not just for anybody who wants to make it not just for anybody who wants to set aside time for it, but even somebody, for anyone really, it's a great starting point, because like we spoke earlier, to just start eating mindfully without scrolling is a hard switch to make on day one. Whereas if you started off by setting aside time, it gives your brain time to process that, oh, you're doing something new, and you can change the way you think using that sort of process, right? So journaling first, for example, is a way to externalize your thoughts. So you are giving time and space to give words to your thoughts. So instead of overthinking it, when you journal, you're writing it down, you're putting it on paper, you're letting it out, you're processing it at the same time, you're giving it a flow, a structure, or even if it's not seeming like flow and structure to you, it is, because it's coming out in the way it needs to, because that's what's running in your head. So by doing that, you're letting go of it, or you work through it. Either way, it's gone, it's done, right? So that helps you ease some of the mental baggage, so that next day when you want to do something else, that mental baggage is not stopping you from being more mindful. And then the second thing is affirmations, which you mentioned, is a way to retrain your patterns, rethink your patterns, retrain your patterns. And how that helps, we've talked about it in previous episodes of Why Behind the Woo. How neuroplasticity is great for reshaping the narrative you tell yourself. So when you want to become more mindful, using affirmations is great, because you're grounding yourself. When you're doing affirmations, you are coming to the present. You're literally saying, I am this now. So that is, what can be more mindful than literally saying, I am doing this now, I am this now, right? And you can say it at any time of the day. This helps you insert it into your daily life more and more, because it's not something you have to do at the end of the day or the start of the day. Literally at any point of your day, you can just say, stop. I am calm, I am at peace, I am whatever you need it to be. So that's a great way. And I think the third thing, which we have spoken about many times, is meditation, of course, which is consciously observing your thoughts, which is yet another amazing way to become mindful, because you detach from the identity that you're attached to from when you were born. You're saying, this is not me in the moment, actually. This is just my reaction to something, but let me take a step back. So I think these are three really good ways to slowly get into the process of doing it. So if you start off with these, if you're worried about getting into it if you're worried about becoming mindful throughout the day, these are great ways to start, because slowly they shape the way your brain thinks.
Right. Yeah, I think when you mentioned that, it was interesting, because imagine doing affirmations mindfully. It's literally telling your present self who you are, and that's how you are acting. And it's like completely detached from the biases you have about yourself, or like, thoughts and opinions that have been fed to you. So yeah, it's almost like saying that, okay, I'm here, I'm present, and I believe that I am healthy in this body and mind, and that's how I show up.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that.
Or for the first time you're trying it, say you're trying, like, you're drawing something because you thought like you felt creative, and in doing so you might discover that you have a talent or an interest in it, and that becomes an affirmation or a good thought for yourself, that, oh, actually I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I might have started it off as a self-care thing, or anything. It can apply to anything. You're cooking food, what you do every day, but one day you do mindfully and you realize, I actually enjoy this. I enjoy food. I'm good at cooking food. I'm good at the way I give the people I love food. And it becomes, again, another new way of looking at yourself, a new self-talk for yourself. So
it's a new neural pathway, like we mentioned.
Exactly.
Great. So now that we have talked about all of these tools, I guess it's a great moment to mention why we are here as Purple Forest. The idea behind Purple Forest was to help people live more mindfully every day. And when people ask us, what do you do? It's as simple as saying that we want people to start living and noticing things around them. Our tools should be a catalyst in your growth and self-development in a way that you are living a better life every day. So now we move on to the fourth topic for today, which is, how long does it take to see results when you start your mindfulness journey? So in terms of mindfulness, is there a timeline that people can follow, or like, is there a result that they should expect immediately or in long term? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I'd love to hear. And also, another thing I've heard people saying before is mindfulness just supposed to be like trusting the process? So how much of that is woo and how much of that is why?
I think there is a lot of woo in this answer, and in a good way, because we are doing a lot of things, including feeling our emotions, with an intent to measure it, with an intent to have an output for it, which is not the case. For some things, you just have to do it trusting that it works because it does, and there is no refuting that, frankly. And it's funny because everybody does come into sort of mindfulness, meditation, any of these practices wanting a timeline, because they want to set a date on their calendar saying, this is the day I healed fully. But change and inner growth are not linear processes. They're happening all the time, simultaneously, without you knowing, with you knowing, right? So nobody can control it or expect how it'll go.
Right.
But we can talk about certain things that do happen once you start the process of mindfulness, which is, it starts subtly with changes in the way you're thinking. Your thinking patterns start shifting in the subtlest, smallest
Right.
ways on a day-to-day basis. And then you've got, over a few days or weeks, you'll notice that you're better regulating your emotions. You're getting better at that. You're able to take a step back. What we were talking about earlier, consciously, it starts happening unconsciously. Your mind itself is saying, it's okay, it's fine. You can be calm now. You don't have to respond to it. You don't have to react to it. It's not a danger to you, because that fight or flight mode doesn't kick in so quickly
Right.
as before when it comes to stress. And slowly, over a longer period of time, your entire personality will transform into something that is so much more softer, gentler, more mindful, because your entire lens has shifted. The way you look at the world around you, the way you look at everything that's happening to you, has transformed with and without you even realizing it. And I think that's such a beautiful power of mindfulness, and that's the way it works. And because it's so gradual and subtle, you do need to trust it, because
Right.
the moment you start questioning it, then you're taking 2 steps back without even realizing it, because you're rewiring your patterns into thinking, okay, maybe this is not working.
Got it. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I guess, like, to sum up all the points that we're looking at, is that there is no immediate shift. It's more of a progression that you will notice within yourself. So if you're trying to put a tangible number to it, it won't be possible, but you will level up as a human being, at least like in the way that people say it, right? And I think, yeah, any form of self-growth looks like that, be it mindfulness, be it like, people who do yoga or like workout. You cannot assign timelines. It's multiple factors that play.
Now that we've had this whole talk about mindfulness, a little rapid fire quiz for you on what we've discussed, and applying it for different groups of people and different scenarios.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on how different groups of people can use mindfulness, right?
Okay.
My first question is for students, how can mindfulness help with focus or exam anxiety?
So it reduces comparison. I think, when you're being yourself, you're not comparing yourself to your peers. Second is handling pressure when it comes to like exams or just stressful situations at school. And third is better concentration overall, like there's increased focus and they're able to just perform better on a day-to-day.
And now for working professionals, how does mindfulness show up in a high stress job?
I think one of the biggest is burnout prevention, and I think we've spoken about this in detail in our last episode as well. So if you're interested in watching that, find the link below in the description. The second one is better decision making, and also because a lot of working professionals cope with a lot of stress, mindfulness basically helps you remove yourself from those situations consciously and make better calls in general through the day. And the third, which is also like it's a part of the previous two things I said, which is not attaching your self-worth to a certain moment or like a certain thought, because that is really important. The moment you are able to do that, you're regaining power in terms of being able to make the right decision and not be biased by your own thoughts or experiences from the past.
And the last one, with general relationships, can mindfulness improve relationships?
Absolutely. I think the first and the most important that you also spoke about is emotional regulation. I think it's so important when you show up in a relationship. If you are not feeling okay, you're definitely going to project on the other person. So being mindful means you're listening to your partner more. It means you're rationalizing more and you're separating again your thought from your emotion. And that's when you learn how to respond as opposed to react. And when you react, things go bad, and we all know that. So like learning to respond is like a key skill which comes from being present with your partner or with your mom or with your sibling, etc. So yeah, I think that is. So did I pass the mindfulness test?
You were fully mindful during this conversation and listening.
So now that brings us to the end of this episode, but before I close off, I have one last question for you. If someone were to take away one thing from this entire conversation, what would that be?
If the goal is to experience, then everything becomes a win. The moment you start trying to just exist and experience life as it is, then every moment seems happy and joyous, and you're right here, right now, having a great time.
Thank you so much for that. That was very well said. And yeah, I don't think we can get over how good that article was. So once again, even though we've said 4 times, we suggest that you give it a read. It's really great. And it makes you realize how living is a gift to you. Like, the fact that your heart is beating, it has been beating since the day you were born, and now you're here. That is your body being mindful to you, and you should return that favor. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this really wonderful segment. Thank you for the chat. I would like to close off by quoting something I really liked when I read it. It basically says that mindfulness isn't about changing your life overnight, it's about noticing it while it happens. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye!